Hi. I want to share something with you that I integrated into my strategic plan this year. And this is an approach that I've never tried before, but it is something that is incredibly intentional to help me manage exhaustion and really burnout. So when I think about being a leader, really, when I think about the past year and a half, what we've had to go through with COVID, that's got its own level of fatigue and exhaustion, and many other emotions that we're all wrestling with, including grief, and especially burnout. But even before COVID, when we think about the amount of hours that we work and all the competing priorities with friends and family and sports and activities and kiddos, and we're just pulled a lot of different directions, and there's a lot of pressure to be involved in a lot and to work a lot of hours. So I tried something different this year because I am a workaholic. Work is what I go to when I'm stressed, when I don't want to feel, and when I don't want to deal with things. So when I've had hard things in my life, my tendency is to just go to work. And I started learning that habit early in my early 20s. And it also didn't help that a lot of the roles that I was working in and leading in were operational related roles in industrial environments, specifically centered around maintenance. So maintenance is a 24/7 world. So that fit my workaholism perfectly because I could just work all the time and not deal with things. So with that said, I want to share something with you that was really helpful. And then I'm from an assessment standpoint to help me uncover some things I didn't know about myself. And then I integrated this approach into my strategic plan this year to hold myself accountable. So it's different, and feel free to steal it if it's helpful for you. So this is something from Brene Brown's research, and specifically I'm referencing Dare to Lead. So in her program, she's got an assessment called an Armored Leadership Assessment. And essentially in this assessment, it lists the behaviors that leaders typically engage in when they're leading from a place of self-protection versus leading from a place of what we call grounded confidence. So when we're struggling as leaders in the workplace with really self-worth and how good we feel about our leadership skills and ourselves in general, if we're struggling, we'll lead from a place of self-protection when we just don't want to deal with uncertainty. So we have these behaviors that we call armored behaviors, like armor. And we engage in these behaviors because we feel like they keep us safe, but if anything, they keep us from being seen, and they keep us from leading in an authentic, courageous way, which is on the other end of the spectrum called daring leadership behaviors. It's when we know we are good enough and worthy enough, and we show up in a way with grounded confidence that engages the people we're leading from a place of authenticity and curiosity. So when we're not feeling good enough and we're feeling insecure, we'll engage in 11 different ways based upon Brene's research that we call leading from self-protection. So I'm going to share a couple specifically that I struggled with, and then I'll share what I integrated into my strategic plan. So one specifically, one armored leadership specific behavior that I struggled with is fostering a scarcity driven culture. Essentially, there is never enough time, there is never enough resources, there's just never enough, versus being committed to and modeling we are enough and we have enough. So when I think about a lot of the industries that I led in, there was never enough, and never enough time was a big one. So some of the really pre-warning indicators or common indicators, or if you're a lean person like me, your and-on lights that go off to let you know that this is a behavior you might be engaging in are, I'll give you some examples. Leaders use fear and uncertainty to drive production or productivity from their employees. Another common indicator of this armored leadership behavior is leaders don't acknowledge good work and small successes because we fear some people might become complacent and slow down. Guilty. Exhaustion is rewarded as a status symbol. So essentially, how long we're working, the insane amount of hours we're working, we're comparing, and that becomes a status. Guilty as charged. Next is because our perceived value is often tied to our performance, we tend to hustle for our worth. And last common indicator here is there's a level of comparison and ranking that drives a mentality of win or lose and crush or be crushed. So when I think about those indicators, when we start to see those behaviors show up, it's letting us know, hey, we might be struggling here and we might need to do something different. Well, mine specifically that has been a huge one for me is exhaustion is rewarded as a status symbol. I remember coming in and sharing with my peers, how many hours I've worked for the week, which was often a lot. And especially in Class 1 railroading, we would often work double shift as supervisors because we were just short-staffed sometimes. So it wasn't uncommon to work first, go home, get some food, come back, and then work third shift, and then work first shift again. And I think that happens a lot in healthcare too. So with that said, the exhaustion as a status symbol is something I've struggled with for years and still struggling with it now in my business. So I decided to do something differently. So instead of constantly grinding and essentially bragging how many hours I've been working, I needed to start really modeling rest, play, and recovery and some good boundaries around my self-care. So that's hard for me. It's very hard for me. And if you're like me, you're probably feeling this too. So in my strategic plan this year, I factored in breaks every quarter. So here's what I did. Here was my trick that I'm holding myself accountable to as literally a KPI for my organization. And I'm taking it pretty seriously. Every quarter I'm taking a break. So every quarter I take a break and go somewhere. It could be a staycation or it could be a vacation if I can do it, but I'll go somewhere and I don't work. I don't take my laptop and I'm not checking work email. I refuse. So whether it's 3 days or if I'm lucky, 7 days, and I haven't really had 7 days yet, but even taking 3 days and not doing that is a huge deal as a business owner to take that type of break. I need it. And the only way I knew to hold myself accountable is to factor in a KPI that my organization and myself as a leader can hold myself accountable to, and that my team can start holding me accountable to as well. So my goal with this is to continue doing this, work through my fear and shame around why I feel like I have to be exhausted all the time to be a good leader. Once I work through that and I start modeling rest, play, and recovery, then I can start to really build that into my culture, because the last thing I want to do as a leader is invite my team to feel the same. I don't need a team that's burnt out, feeling again, that they have to compare how many hours they're working in order to feel valued in my organization. That is something, the buck stops here with me. It's got to stop, because it's not healthy and it's not productive, and it's not the type of leader I want to be. So if it's helpful for you to steal this, please try it on. Let me know. And even if you can't take vacations a lot, maybe you just plan a staycation, but I'm curious about your feedback. If you want some additional information on the Armored Leadership Assessment, send me a note and I'm happy to give you a little more context about how this works. Good to see you. Take care.